What's up, Facebook, Instagram, social media, all that jazz? This is Dean FM, yo girl, and I'm a queer rapper and activist from Boston, Massachusetts. Today, I wanted to discuss my first experience at a mental institution. This is going to be a deep one. But we're going to keep it light because sometimes I feel like the negativity is a deterrent from these stories getting out. So, let's just get right into it. It started when I was 13. I had ingested silica, a packing product, in the attempt to get out of the hell called middle school. I went to the nurse who immediately called the police and ambulance, and I was taken out of school in a stretcher with a towel over my face to hide my identity and was transported to Metro West Hospital in Natick, Massachusetts. I was evaluated by a woman in the emergency room where I told them about my depression, anxiety, and some suicidal ideation. She left, and when she came back, she said it's best I be hospitalized. Now, at first, I thought I was just going to a normal hospital room. So, I was put in a wheelchair and brought to the top floor where I was brought to a unit called CDU, or the Child Development Unit. When I arrived, I noticed the woman who brought me had to use a special key card to get in, and I was so confused as to why this place was behind locked doors. When I entered, I somehow still assumed this was a normal hospital situation, but boy was I wrong. I saw behind glass a big old room where there appeared to be other teens sitting in a circle who immediately turned and looked me up and down. After this odd experience, I was taken to my room where I was to share with somebody else something I absolutely didn't approve of. I hated sleeping in the same room with other people. This was one of the things I always hated because sleeping was something I was very particular about, and I'm still very particular about. At this point, I realized I was in deep trouble. What was originally a plan to ingest silica due to being so uncomfortable and anxious at school did not go as I planned, and now had to stay in this place for however long these people in charge saw fit. I sat on my bed with my mother and cried, begging for her to take me home, but she told me very bluntly that this wasn't possible, and she was so sorry. After this, we were both taken to the unit's dining room for questioning and discussion on what was going on. I still was pouring tears, but I was met with the harsh reality that crying wouldn't get me out of this one. After some discussion, the nurse we were talking to left to go take care of something, okay? I told my mom that I need to leave now. Since she was not complying, I proceeded to stab myself in the arm with my home keys, not yet confiscated, making a very blatant mark. I wanted to convince my mother that if I can't leave, I'll be self-destructive to the max, but this was a big mistake, and I was very confused. When the nurse came back, my mom showed her my arm, to which was shocking to the nurse, who took everything considered as a hazard to my safety and explained that this behavior will only get me further into the system. I was crying even more intensely now. After this, my mother was taken for more discussion on my admission, and I was taken to a room designated for art, and I was introduced to a fierce girl named Sarah, another patient in the ward who sat with me. They let me talk to her one-on-one in an attempt to calm me down and get adjusted to this life. Sarah and I talked to where she explained she was there for hanging herself. Not successful because her mother caught her doing so and freaked out, calling the hospital to immediately take her, which is probably the correct decision. I wasn't used to such stories, and this was my first introduction to the horrifying reality of mental illness. After talking with Sarah, I began my surreal experience of uncomfortable long group chats, disturbing roommates, 2, because 1 was discharged in the middle of my stay, and dark moments of severe homesickness and self-hatred. To sum up the story, I was there for 5 days, which felt like a very long time, if you can imagine. I was very grateful to return home, but now understood my behavior could result in very intense consequences. But in this case, looking back, hospitalization was the best thing for me, as well understanding how serious my depression and anxiety actually was. Wanting to get out of school, I can see now, was not the only factor in this entire plight. I had little interest in my well-being, ingesting what I thought would make me sick, and this was not normal behavior, to say the least. Though having gone through so much, this was the very beginning of what would turn into years up to now of a very intense and emotional new life, undergoing mental health treatments, after treatments, some of which I'll share in another video. I hope this story time will be just a little influential in playing a minor role in my own little way to help lessen the unkind stigma of depression, anxiety, and mental hospitals, especially when it comes to the understanding of how much and adolescent can struggle in such ways. I hope you found this story time enlightening and interesting, and have a good night. Bye-bye.